welcome to Japet Community Life Magazine. I am standing here with Public Defender, am I correct? Bob Wesley? Okay, we want to learn more about your programs for one, and then also, as we spoke prior to this, about the Public Defender's Office and what it is you guys do. So could you start off with your mission, and then we'll go from there.
Well, in 1963, the United States Supreme Court made positive and final that indigent people, all people charged with a crime in court, should have a lawyer standing with them, the assistance of counsel, with a qualified lawyer to be with them. Some states had done it sporadically, but it was a Florida inmate who was sentenced without the aid of counsel who wrote a handwritten petition to the United States Supreme Court and asked them to make that the law of the land. And that case was Gideon versus Wainwright, decided in 1963, and it provided for the right of counsel. And so we like to say that we have been speaking truth to power since 1963. That's what we do, and now every jurisdiction has a public defender. All people have the right of counsel, and in fact, Gideon, in providing lawyers to poor folks and people that couldn't make arrangements with counsel, actually expanded the entire legal profession, so that all of our friends that do personal injury work and other ways in which they help people with legal problems, are much more in tune with someone being using a lawyer's assistance rather than going through this difficult and complex life alone.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Being that is, why don't you tell me the steps? Let's say I was a misguided kid. Can I use that term on you?
Sure.
Okay, and I got in trouble. When do you guys step in, and how does it work? And I also understand you have different services right here in the Public Defender's.
The Public Defender's position is unique, that we don't get to choose our clients. Only when the determination is made that a person is not able to afford their own counsel, under Florida law, the clerk makes that determination, and then the judge appoints, then we get in the case. So I cannot take action on my own without being appointed. And that's a good rule because, for instance, I just took a phone call from a father from Alabama whose daughter got a red light ticket and wants me to handle the ticket. Well, he lives in Alabama. I don't know if he's calling me from a rundown trailer or from a mansion on the hill. I don't know. I just know he wanted free legal advice. And we don't do traffic work. I don't do traffic work. Don't know his daughter, and so I couldn't help him. So generally when we field a question from somebody, we'll answer it, and I like to talk to people in the community. But we're actually formally appointed through the judicial process, and then we take over a case, and then that client becomes our responsibility. This happens very, very early at the initial appearance process. If someone goes to jail and bonds out, then they're lucky to be able to leave jail then by posting the bond, and then they'll make arrangements with lawyers later on. But for the people that don't bond out, we stand with them at the lectern there before the judge at the initial appearance in court, and then offer counsel to them then. Now, we are unique in this office, in this community, in the services that we provide, because the person in jail is seen within 24 hours by a social worker. It's important for us to know our new client, but also know, do you have medical problems that we need to know about?
Now, the clerk, in the beginning you said is the clerk dealing with that process first, then notify you guys, and then you come.
They take paperwork from the client to ask. The client has to, under oath, list what their assets are.
Okay.
So if you have 14 jet skis and 2 Maseratis and 3 homes, you probably need to hire your own lawyer. But the person has to under oath state what their assets are. And the majority of people that come through the criminal justice system are people that are low on funds. I mean, that just stands to reason that the problems are greater the poorer you are. I think we all understand that.
Right.
So we want to know if the person has a mental health history. We want to know if there's a drug or substance abuse problem, because we need to protect the person's health. We've had instances where a person was on an addictive drug and they're going to be going through withdrawal, so we need to bring that to attention or offer them some services. If we have a client that's diabetic or suffers from some major medical condition, we need to start working on making sure while in custody that their care continues with that. So we talk to people early in the process that are involved. And then with there's such a divergent path. People are out of custody awaiting their case, make appointments to come in and meet with their lawyer periodically, and people in jail wait for the lawyer to come to them to work with them. And we like to say that the person in custody thinks about nothing but their case, and the person out of custody never thinks about their case, because it's easy to put that on the back burner because you want to ignore the bad news. So, what's a creation I'm very proud of is that I was looking at my bank statements one night, looking at my canceled checks, looking at my account, paying bills to the account at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I said, well, why can't my clients do this? So we created here in-house an information system. And your viewers are welcome to log into it. It's MyFlorida, spelling out Florida, myfloridapd.com. And every one of our clients has a username and password. And she can log in to the account anytime on the weekend at night and see her case materials. Now, for the community members who want to come and look at what we have to offer there, they can see a photograph of all of our staff members.
Now, is this area secure enough?
Right.
That's what I need to know.
That's the username and password. The username and password protects that, so their private information is shared. But the thing is, when we were dealing with just paper copies, somebody said, I want to hire a lawyer in Tampa, copy all my materials, and send it to the lawyer in Tampa. Or my Aunt Minnie is real smart, and I want her to read all my paperwork, copy it and send it to Memphis, so Aunt Minnie in Memphis can read it. Or, I want to. The thing is, they have the username and password. If they choose to share it with a family member,
that's on that.
Then the family member has access to the material. Now, the shortstop is, we talked about the people out of custody. Certainly that takes care of them because they have a computer at the library or at home.
And they can get it then.
But for the inmates, we actually created a kiosk, a computer that hangs on the wall in the jail cell where they can access our information on there. We're very, very proud of this development.
So it's in the cell. Is it in the cell with a bunch or in regular cells with 2 people?
No, and more, the cells are more like what we all call a bullpen. It probably has 30.
Okay, so when they first go in,
no, I mean this is when they're waiting to go to court, weeks afterwards. There'd be 30 or 40 men in a cell, and hanging on the wall will be a computer-assisted device where they can log in, use their username and password, and read their case information that way. And that's the gem of this whole process. It doesn't exclude the in-custody inmate. And this is the only public defender office, the only law office in the nation that does it. We invented it here.
Now,
we made it all work.
Let's say this. Let's go with the bullpen. How normally long would a person be in a bullpen? Is that just more or less as soon as they get locked up, and then maybe a month later, depending on, how does it work? 48 hours?
No, unless you're a max inmate with a major crime or with a mental health problem that affects your behavior, you're going to be in a dormitory setting. So the only people that get their own cell are people that have acted out extremely, or people that are more dangerous. So.
So how long would you be in a bullpen? Just for the 30 days?
No, for the majority of the time you're in jail. And if you end up going to prison in Florida, there are very few prisons that have single cells. It's not like booking accommodations. You're always in serious space.
So what I'm saying to you is the bullpen. Let's say you got a sentence 60 days out. Am I correct on that? You stay in that bullpen for 60 days, or you guys try to, let's say the court date is 60 days, or what is the normal court date? 60 days, 30 days?
It varies. It varies greatly. In a misdemeanor case, you have you're brought to trial. You're supposed to be brought to trial within 3 months. You have a speedy trial right. In a criminal case, you have a right to be brought to trial within 6 months.
Wow. So 6 months you could be in a bullpen.
You could be in a group setting with a lot of other inmates.
And that's if you can't get out on bail, and that's when you guys step in.
Right. Well, no, we've been in the case since the very first day of court, but we're waiting for a court date, putting together information, preparing the case, getting ready to go.
So what is the normal days someone could be locked up? At least over 30, correct? Is it that crowded or is it that busy?
Yeah, but across the country, inmate populations are lower than they have been in 25, 30 years. So there's not the instance of, we've seen triple-decker bunk beds in the past. It's not that way anymore, but there are bunk beds. We've seen inmates sleeping on the floors. It's not that way anymore. So things have changed a lot in the last 10 years about prison overcrowding.
Okay, so let me say this. Let's go through the process. Once you guys contact him, correct? I know you had mentioned it was a social service or some sort of social thing, social worker that comes in and talks to him and deal with his needs. At what point do the lawyer come in, or give me the steps before you go to court?
Within a week of the person's arrest, my lawyer is supposed to make contact with the person and begin the representation process.
So the theory of a lot of people say, and a lot of people say this, you go to a public defender, they just get the case that day, and they don't really study to help out. That's just false, correct?
And you know what? There's a bad reputation for
and that's what a lot of people say.
There may be a bad reputation for public defenders, and it may be earned. I don't think it's earned here.
Okay.
Our caseloads are smaller than most places in Florida. We're good managers. Let me give you an example of that. In Miami, 42% of the staff are lawyers. 58% are support staff, secretaries. In our office, 3 out of 4 staff members are lawyers. That's what makes the caseload smaller. We don't have as many secretaries. We have social workers and investigators, but we don't have my brother-in-law sitting here working, holding down one office. Support staff is minimized because we're very progressive about technology. We have a paperless office. Everybody makes entries on a computer file in each particular case. They make their notations. So when the prosecutor goes to court, they're dragging a cart with all their paper files, and we're going across there with one thin laptop.
Okay, so let's make sure the viewers know. You get social first. That's the first contact. The second contact is the lawyer and then the investigator, or do the investigator come before?
Well, it depends on the investigative services need. Remember when they talk about the emergency room, there's a triage function.
Right.
So when the emergency room doctor is there and you've got a gunshot wound to the leg, you've got a car accident with severe head injury, and you've got a baby with 105-degree temperature. Which one do you take first? Well, the gunshot wound on the leg, you're going to stabilize the fella, give him some medicine. The little baby with the temperature, you're going to tell the other healthcare provider, give her some aspirin, hold on, and the head trauma from the accident is probably going to go first. Right. Now, if the baby's temperature spikes, you're going to give your attention there, and you're going to make the decision. If the person who had the head injury from the car wreck is in real significant harm, and you think they might pass, you're going to give your attention there. Okay. Or if you think that there's nothing you can do for them because the amount of what's done and you're waiting for a brain surgeon, you're going to go. You have to decide what's serious. And I always tell my lawyers it's an amazing craft that they acquire. If they took 100 files and they go, this is a tough case, it takes a lot of work. This is an easy case, there are not many questions, and this is in between. I'm not sure yet. I always say if you took 100 files and I took 100 files, we wouldn't disagree on 5 of them. You kind of know. I mean, 8 people saw you shoot Sam Brown at the skating rink, and it's on the video from the security video. We might wonder why he was shot. We might wonder what happened beforehand, but we know it's not a case where, was there an alibi? Were you out of town that day? We know that we've got a difficult case, and it's not a who done it, it's a why done it.
Okay, and so that's when the investigator come in. Now, your investigation, I gather, is from, and this is what I'm wondering, from the social worker, let's call it a social worker, then the lawyer, and then the investigator go out, and then you go to court with the lawyer.
It may or may not, but think about our same situation at the skating rink. I don't need an investigator if we talk to our client, and I say, look, I've seen the pictures, they have pictures, and there are folks there that say you did it, and the client says, yeah, and I just snapped that day because he's been seeing my girlfriend. Well, I need an investigator to tell me about that, because it's not really a defense.
No, what I was trying to say that some offices around the country may not have an investigator in the public defenders.
I agree exactly.
Yeah. Because, of course, when I met you, you explained a lot that I actually didn't even realize was going on in the public defenders, how the different programs are set up, what you meet first, all the way to this, and then all the way to court.
What is huge is the mental health situation. A criminal lawyer 20 years ago did not have the expertise and the understanding of the mental health like we do today. And life has gotten more complex, and the New York Times tells us 1 in 5 Americans has a mental illness problem at some point in their life. So we need to anticipate that. And the people who have mental illnesses are as likely to be victims as they are to be people who cause problems for other people. But we need to know if somebody has been seeing mental health treatment, if they're receiving mental health medications now, because that's going to be a vulnerable person who needs the continued care. It may also be a defense in some way to either excuse their criminal conduct or result in a reduced punishment.
Now, let's get on some of your mission, and that is the youth of today. Tell me where some of the problems you feel is with the youth of today, and what your mission is to try to assist.
You know, probably when 20 years ago, again as an example, the time when the kids got arrested the most and got in trouble the most was when school was out. At Christmas time, when there's a winter break, and in the summertime is when you always saw kids getting in trouble because they were away from school. What has changed is that with the police officers in the schools now, the police officer says, I have one tool. There's only one thing I can do. I have an arrest. I can arrest people. That's all I can do. So the police officer's response to most problems typically was to arrest people. What we think that we've seen with standardized testing, with police in the schools, with more pressures on teacher accountability, is that the teacher has a class of 28 kids. But here's one youngster whose parents don't help on schoolwork. Parents may have a drug problem. Parents may not be involved at all. The child may wake up in the morning and have to get himself going to school. Nobody's there to feed him. He finds something cold to eat, tries to go to school. That kid's going to show up at school hungry, not supported by loving parents who are involved in the education process, and is going to need more teacher attention. Well, if a teacher has got the FCAT coming, and whether she's going to keep her job or whether she's going to get a raise depends entirely on her children's performance, is she going to want to get rid of that kid? Is it a human nature to want to try and remove the distraction? And so that's what's referred to as the school-to-prison pipeline. That once you tell a kid, how can I get rid of Terry, who's just never prepared and doesn't do his homework? Oh, I know. Terry is a disruption, and we'll find some reason to get him excluded from the class. And then, now that I have 27, then we'll go forward and I'll get a good FCAT score. It'll be good for me. Or the child who has a behavioral disorder because of the way that his uncle has been treating him, or because of abuse by some neighborhood member, or for so many reasons, that child acts out in school. Well, our point is that what we keep advocating for is rather than have someone put handcuffs on them, because they have a crime now called disruption of school function. If they had that when I was in school, I would be getting out next year probably on parole.
Okay.
But you know, with the class clown, now they can take him away, arrest him for disruption of school function. And I said, we don't think the arrest changes and improves behavior. We think that they should be, instead of spending money on police officers in school, they should have behavioral specialists, social workers, therapists, somebody to put their arm around the child and say, who helped you do your homework last night? Did you have breakfast this morning? Who wakes up with you? Is anybody harming you? Is anybody abusing you? Is there anything bad going on? We desperately want to solve these problems with the kids while they're still, you know, a kid can fall off a bicycle and get up and go easier than you and I can because we're set in our ways, and the kids are more flexible. The kids are more flexible, and the kid being flexible means that we can work with them and try and improve them. It gets tougher and tougher as they go on, and we just know that. Yeah, I quote Frederick Douglass so much. It is easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. And so if we start trying to solve the needs that the kids have, that's why the simplest thing is a school lunch programs and providing food at school. Lets the kid have their nutritional needs taken care of, so it's not a blocking the educational process.
So it seems you speak of this very passionate, so I know you've done this for how many years now?
Well, I've spent my whole career in the criminal justice system. I've been a lawyer for more than 35 years. So.
35 years, and your heart is really dealing with the kids?
Well, yeah, I know, because again, I can change that. I can change it. When the tree's grown up and bent over the road, I can't make it bend back up. You know,
so your heart has always been the kids, to help out the kids. Now, let me ask you this. What do you see, besides like the program you guys were at today? Can you tell me a little bit more about that, where we was early today?
Well, what we talked about today is the opportunity for police officers to make more practical decisions about whether a child's conduct really merits the full force and effect of the criminal justice system. We're talking about an arrest with handcuffs, with going to the juvenile detention center, with being treated like a little criminal, or whether the conduct is a kid being a kid. And even though it may have a criminal title for it, but for a young person, we're talking about whether we should give them the opportunity to modify their behavior through a series of self-improvement programs. Because we believe, and the sociological research shows, that arrest start the process of the kid thinking that they're bad.
Okay.
Build the kid up and say, I know you can do better. I know that you're embarrassed by this. We're going to give you an opportunity to prove that you're really not that kind of kid and that you're going to get better.
So tell me a little bit more. The citation is when an officer get ready to arrest you, and then if he chooses not to right then and there, he can just give you a citation for it. Is that what you're saying?
When they started the civil citation, it was an idea to divert children so that the police officer would not automatically arrest. Mm-hmm. And then they had to modify it because we were seeing racial disparity about who got the benefit of the civil citation. And so then the genius thing was, in the next year, was then to change it so if the officer did not use that for a kid who was eligible, to give a written reason why. Because, you know, no officer in this day and age is going to write because of race.
You are correct.
Right. Right. So that was to make that stop and pause and go, why am I not doing it? So that's one time, you know, one of the representatives wanted to modify the federal death penalty and say before the jury can return the death sentence, everybody had to swear that race was not a factor. Let's stop and think about it and say, did I use my neutral assessment, or am I harboring some resentment? Right? I mean, so there's that point, point of reflection, and it's helped some, but we still see that that there's some disparity in how it's applied. But what we're trying to do is push it more and more because we cannot afford to lock up every child, nor do we want to bend every child in that way towards the jail. You know, parents used to like scared straight programs.
Right.
They don't work. You can't intimidate a child to be better. Kids, when you put a kid in the juvenile detention center, suddenly they're in a whole big room full of other kids watching TV. That's not a bad punishment to a kid.
No.
I mean, that's just
freedom to do whatever.
But I mean, they're in a lockdown facility, but they're hanging out with other kids. So that's where they'd be at home or school or someplace else. And they try, you know, kids try and be tough. And once they said, I've never been arrested, that they want to achieve that. Once you arrest them, then they go, I have been arrested.
Yeah, it makes no difference.
That's what starts to create a child will be what you tell them that they are. Let's tell them that they're wonderful and they're smart and they're capable and that they can be loving and that they can have all the joy in life. They can learn everything. They can read every book. They can have all these successes and all these joys rather than saying you're worthless.
Now let me ask you this. That's one program. If there are any other programs, now let's say they do the citation, and I want to make sure I heard up there correct. They would go, then the citation would force them to what, pay a fine, or would they go into another program? How does that program totally work?
Yeah, the fines don't make sense because it's children. They're
so
they're
how
fining
does the
the
citation,
parents.
right, finally, yeah.
Right. But you're asking a child, write an essay about why marijuana can be harmful. The girl got arrested for having marijuana. have her write an essay, make her read some about the effects of marijuana and why it's not conducive to a healthy lifestyle. Have her write an essay. Right?
Okay, so let's say they write the essay, because I have seen that in court where I think the judge had the young lady write an essay to her parents, the
Sure.
police, and the young lady who she insulted.
And that's the best reflection, is having the child think about where they're at, what they're doing.
Now, at some point, we do have some bad apples out there. When they go through that process, how many times do you go through that before you say, okay, we need to?
I'm always on the client's side, but
Okay.
my point is that we're,
These are questions that somebody is going to ask, or they may already wonder.
Right.
Exactly, if James went to you 5 times with these 5 citations of stealing from a store, 5 times in 1 year, at what point do we now go forward, or what do we do?
and my approach is,
Okay.
why is James stealing from the store? When I find out his stepdaddy put a lock and chain on the refrigerator and doesn't let him eat unless the stepdaddy then gives him the food, when I understand the child's nutritional needs, I think I've got a defense.
Okay, well, all right, you have a defense. What about the child who says, I do it because I like the thrill of it,
Right.
and I get off on this? So now, and this is the question, how do you determine?
Well,
Because it's repeating 4 or 5 times, or do you determine it to say, hey, after the first 2 times, okay, you know what, you robbed the same store, you beat up the store owner, this is twice, we gave you a citation, or do you continue to say, we're going to have you write the store owner a letter, we're going to...
see, my part is the defender is not on the punishment side, on the accountability side. My side entirely is being a lawyer, just like it would be for a 45-year-old businessman who ran a bank.
No, I was talking about the program, not your side, not as defender.
I'm not in the program. My thing is
Okay.
that it's better for the child to be in any program that requires them to be informed, be responsive, be accountable. I think all that's preferred to being arrested. My whole point is I think that arrests are traumatic.
Correct.
I think that it's difficult on a child, and I think it's an easy way out for police officers to arrest people and think that it works when they just have to look at the research and say it doesn't work. My point is pro-child, pro-family, and trying to help children achieve better behavior and better lifelong results in a logical, smart way. And I think that putting people in cow pens and putting people in handcuffs isn't really instructive. But we do get to a point if someone continues to be violent, even if it's a result of their own problems as a youth, if they are going to continue to use violence, that they have may at some point lose the right to live in free society, because your family, my family, and the community doesn't deserve to be injured by the child.
Now, you as a public defender, like you say, you've been in this for a long time, and you've got a lot of experience. For those who may want to get into defending as lawyers, how can I put this? Well, like they say, marriage, the first 7 years, if you make it through there, you're good. How's that perspective when it comes to a lawyer?
We have such a different view of the practice of law. Remember that in my father's house there are many rooms. Well, in the practice of law, there's so many different things that you can do. But we really emphasize new graduates that we want to train and bring to the law and help them to get a lot of trial experience and learn to be lawyers. That's how we love to run this
And that's
office.
something else. You have trial lawyers, and you have investigators, and then you have the regular lawyers.
No, they're all trial lawyers.
All trial lawyers.
Yeah, Clarence Darrow said, "Real lawyers try cases." That's what. We're real lawyers, but our sweet spot is bringing on new lawyers, training them, helping them start their careers, because this is hard work. It doesn't pay real well, and it's very emotionally demanding. So we take the people who are most driven to learn, who are new graduates, teach them, and then if they want to stay a year, great. They want to stay 2 years, fine. They want to stay 5 years. If they stay 5 years, we want them to sit for a board certification exam, which demonstrates their excellence in their chosen field. But we ask no one to consider this as a lifetime job.
So let me ask you, how would they go about applying for the program that you have here?
To be an assistant public defender?
Yeah, to be able to work.
Well, they need to graduate from law school, pass the bar exam,
Okay.
and then we can we hire one time a year. We have one academy where we train the people all at one time. We try to hire one time a year. We do a week-plus training academy and put them to work. The best way to go swimming in the lake is to jump in the lake. We put them right in the
And after they do that process, they come on, and then, of course, I guess you still have the same program for the investigators, or they come already with their license and all that?
We have a lot of turnover with our lawyers. Very little turnover with the investigators, because it's a great job being an investigator. If I put an ad in the paper and said, wanted to hire a criminal investigator, with benefits and get to work for me, I'd have a line around the courthouse. So they tend not to leave, but the lawyers want to visit those many rooms in our house. I tell these young lawyers, you may have 50 years of helping people in your career. So don't tie yourself down and feel free. You might want to go do environmental work. You might want to do car wreck cases. You might want to do mergers and acquisition. You might want to do real estate law. But the whole foundation will be the time you learn to have actual clients and stand on your hind legs and speak up for them in court. And so we sort of start that way.
So let's get to you then. You have how many lawyers here that are rolling?
We have about 160 lawyers today.
Is that normal for the city?
A little bit big. We're a little bit over, because we hire one time a year, we'll overhire a little bit, and then dwindle down by the summertime. Things get slower, and that's when the new ones come in again. So, yeah, we would typically be about 140, I would think, would be the average number.
And then let's get on the investigate. You run all of that basically here.
Right.
In Orange County or just Orlando?
Well, I have Orange and Osceola counties.
Okay,
The circuit is comprised of Orange and Osceola. The majority of the administrative functions happen in this building at the Orange County Courthouse. We're sort of centralized that way. But we staff our murder cases, and for Kissimmee here, we have a juvenile courthouse, which is on Michigan, at the corner of Michigan and Bumby. On that campus, has been there since 1920 as a foster home in Orange County. And their juvenile services are there on Michigan Avenue. The Kissimmee Courthouse is a freestanding general courthouse with juvenile and adult, all other court functions. And that's located in the courthouse square area in downtown Kissimmee. And then we have 3 courtrooms, it may be surprising to people locally to know, 3 courtrooms in the Orange County Jail. And there's court every single day of the year in the Orange County Jail.
Even holidays, huh?
On Christmas morning, we will be there. We'll be there with people who were arrested on Christmas Eve.
Okay. Well, look, we do appreciate your time. You have anything you'd like to say to our viewers out there?
No, we have an attitude of being very, very open about what we do, because the community funds us, and you have high expectations that we do what we do with great competence, with integrity, and with concern for human beings. And so events such as this give us a chance to open our doors to you and ask for people to call and demand a lot from your public officials, because you give us so much. We have wonderful facilities, and we have caring young geniuses in here doing your work to make sure that when you drive by the courthouse, you don't even worry what's going on in here. You know that there's skill and dedication and fairness is being administered, and that's not a concern.
Well, Japet Community Life Magazine, thanks, Bob, and hope that we can get more interviews from him, more time from him, and maybe some of the investigations, maybe be able to follow you around one day and see what it is that you
Okay.
you do.
Come back and
Thanks
see me.
a lot.
Thank you.